Krsna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda.
Hare Krishna. Welcome. You have come to our channel, Bhagavad-gita, here it is, and this is where we read Bhagavad-gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And my name is Lavanga Latika. We are in the 5th chapter, Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. So this is, some of it is a little bit, how to say, unusual, but it's also very applicable. So I will take text 22 today. Yehi sangsparshaya bhoga dukka yonaya evate adyantavanta konteya nate shuramate buddhaha. An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery, which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. No. An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery. This is quite a sensible attitude to life. The problem is we don't necessarily know what the sources of misery are. And when we hear from the Vedic scriptures, from the Bhagavad-gita, we may be inclined to disagree and think, well, I will do it my way. And that's what the material world is all about. We get the opportunity to try things as many times as we like. In as many species of life, lifetime after lifetime, we get this idea. We become attracted. Let me try this, let me try that. And then we come to a point where we become quite frustrated. Or in other words, we become realistic. We come to the point where we see contact from the senses with the objects of the senses may create some stimulus or some experience or some pleasure even, but it doesn't give us happiness, because that's not where happiness comes from. And we may not be inclined to disbelieve that, because our idea is based on the present culture, and also very much on our desires. So we're trying. But here, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and the wise man does not delight in them. And that is quite intelligent, because if there's something, we kind of enjoy it, but then it ends, and then it creates a different frustration. And we are eternal. We do not have a beginning, and we do not have an end. This life has an end when the body is finished. Then we die. So everything we see in the material world has a beginning and an end, but we do not. And therefore, we are quite incompatible with that type of existence. I will read a purport, a commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Material sense pleasures are due to the contact of the material senses, which are all temporary, because the body itself is temporary. A liberated soul is not interested in anything which is temporary. Knowing well the joys of transcendental pleasures, how can a liberated soul agree to enjoy false pleasure? In the Padma Purana it is said, Ramante yogino nante satyanande chidatmani iti rama padeno naso param brahma bhidiyate. The mystics derive unlimited transcendental pleasure from the Absolute Truth, and therefore the Supreme Absolute Truth, the personality of God, is also known as Rama, because that's what Rama means, the source of all pleasure. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, also 551, it is said, Nayang deho deha bhajam niriloke kastan kaman arhate vidbhujang ye tapo divyang putra kayena sattvang shudyedya smad brahma sokyang tvanantam. My dear sons, there is no reason to labor very hard for sense pleasure while in this human form of life. Such pleasures are available to the stool eaters, hogs. Rather, you should undergo penances in this life by which your existence will be purified, and as a result you will be able to enjoy unlimited transcendental bliss. Therefore, those who are true yogis or learned transcendentalists are not attracted by sense pleasures, which are the causes of continuous material existence. The more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more he is entrapped by material miseries. So this is a different paradigm, because we are living in a society, in a culture that is very much based on the bodily concept of life, based on the idea that not only do we identify with these bodies, but we actually, these bodies are us, this is our identity, and we try to enjoy our lives based on that. And the Veda says, no, that is not going to work. Ultimately, it is not going to work. Even if it works for a little while, then we get more and more entangled, and we get all the other reactions. And these are the kind of things that are not really known nowadays. We enter pretty much the paradigm that says, do whatever you feel like, and if it feels good, then you know that it feels good. And that is not a very far-sighted worldview, because there are many things. We come back to the old examples of smokers and their cigarettes. There's actually even not the first time they try it. Most people, the first time they try smoking cigarettes, they become green in their face and they cough, and it's a horrible experience. But that addictive propensity within nicotine hits very quickly, and very quickly it becomes a kind of addiction. So yes, that moment of the smoking may contain a certain element of pleasure, but the rest of the time, when that craving starts, that okay, I want my nicotine now, otherwise I become very, very restless and very irritated and like that. And of course we have drugs that are far more have a far more stronger impact than nicotine, obviously. And there we hear of these stories where somebody, they try a drug and there is some kind of enjoyment, and then they go back and they try to recreate that enjoyment, and they are not quite able to recreate it, but they are able to create a lot of side effect, a lot of problems, of course different in different substances, but in general it doesn't do us any good. But the first experience might have been an enjoyable experience. And so in this material world there is a certain similarity there. We have this idea that contact with a sense object will give us happiness. It may give us enjoyment. Obviously, you have a good meal, you listen to something beautiful. There is a certain sense of pleasure in that. But we are not these material senses. So therefore, Krishna consciousness is the practical solution, because many of the yoga systems is more about the negation. We take very strongly to this this other understanding, the Vedic understanding. The sense pleasure is temporary, and in the end it doesn't give us any lasting enjoyment. So let's find the thing that lasts, and the only thing that lasts is the soul, and that which is on the spiritual platform. So therefore, renounce everything material, and before we get to that point, it's just kind of very tough and very dry. Krishna consciousness is not like that. Especially in this age, Lord Chaitanya gave us this Harinam Sankirtan process because he knows us. We're not really equipped with that sort of long-term determination for something spiritual that's not immediately tangible. So Krishna consciousness is has a much faster time span where we can actually realize and understand some of the effects. So there are many different yoga systems, but we're focusing on Bhakti Yoga, and in this age we're focusing on the meditation on Krishna's name, which is a very powerful effect. It starts our self-realization, and then we're in contact with the spirit soul, and then we can feel a different level of satisfaction, a different level. We're coming closer to the soul's actual nature of being blissful. Blissfulness is not something we add It's not something we buy in the shop and mix with water and there it is. No, it's what we are. But as long as we're covered in this material existence, we don't access it. So therefore, first we have to kind of get that, start to look at things from that angle instead. Change our point of view, which may be a little difficult. We may feel a little bit lonely in it, because around us, I go to work and now I have lovely workmates. But sometimes these kind of discussions or the topics of what we were eating and the last year what we were eating, and it doesn't exactly touch the soul. And if that is our habits, then this can feel a little unfamiliar. But Krishna is assuring us that it's worth it. I will read another text. 23. Shaknoti hevayat sodhung praksharira vimokshanat kamakrodho bhavang vegang sayukta sa sukhi naraha. Before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, he is well situated and is happy in this world. So I was going to say that's the trick, but it's not a trick, it's reality. The actual peaceful and happiness, the lasting platform of peace and happiness cannot be had in any other way than contacting with the soul, connecting with the soul. Of course, living a life in the mode of goodness gives us a better level of peace and happiness, but it's still limited to this body. I will read a purport here. If one wants to make steady progress on the path of self-realization, he must try to control the forces of the material senses. There are the forces of talk, forces of anger, forces of mind, forces of the stomach, forces of the genital, and forces of the tongue. This is a verse from the... I mix my books up, but I think it's Nectar of Instruction. It describes a person, because that also comes up in Bhagavad-gita, in order to come to the complete level of self-realization, we actually need to find a spiritual guide, a spiritual master, and that person is described as someone who is not controlled by these forces, but who is actually transcendental to these forces, who is not controlled by his... he can control the pushings of the tongue, belly and genitals, talk, anger, and the mind. They come in a line. So if we're unable to control the way we talk, we'll be unable to control our mind, and we won't be able to control our anger either. And then we cannot have the clear intelligence for ourselves what to speak of guiding somebody else in their spiritual life. But one who's able to control the forces of all these different senses and the mind is called Goswami or Swami. Such Goswamis live strictly controlled lives and forego altogether the forces of the senses. Material desires, when unsatiated, generate anger, and thus the mind, eyes, and chest become agitated. Therefore one must practice to control them before one gives up this material body. One who can do this is understood to be self-realized and is thus happy in the state of self-realization. It is the duty of the transcendentalist to try strenuously to control desire and anger. This is very interesting because it's very difficult to control desire and anger, and we see that in many situations where people, they kind of risk their, maybe not their life, but the situation they have in life, because they cannot control these desires. And when you're standing at that point, when you're already so angry that you're about to burst, the mind, eyes, and chest become agitated. That's interesting. But you can see if somebody's getting very angry, their eyes become kind of almost red, and the mind cannot be peaceful. You cannot draw it back, and the chest becomes agitated. At that point, it's difficult to control the anger. Same thing with desire. When one is building up to these desires, and of course the desire that we kind of associate with this sort of thing is the sexual desire. If one is already in a very agitated state of sexual desire, it's difficult to draw back. So therefore, a transcendentalist, a person practicing self-realization, is advised to create a lifestyle that doesn't put us at that point, that we don't get to that point of uncontrolled desires and uncontrolled anger, not at the brink where it will be difficult to pull back, but long before that, to live a peaceful life, to put in some elements of meditation, to put in some elements of self-controlled, sense-controlled life, where the focus is of a spiritual nature. And it may sound a little abstract, but a life of Krishna consciousness, we're having, of course, from the Bhagavad-gita, but especially in our line from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, from Srila Prabhupada, like helpful instructions how to set up our lives in such a way that the senses, because we cannot just put them in a box, we cannot put our desires away and pretend to just be some kind of peaceful nothing, because we're persons and we have a drive, we have interests, we have desires. But if we can connect those desires with Krishna and connect them with activities in service to Krishna, then the senses and the mind will become naturally absorbed on Krishna's behalf. And that is a kind of sense control that is natural, or I guess I shouldn't say organic, because it's not of this physical body at all, but it's in line with our nature, with who we are. We don't have to pretend that we're something else. We don't have to reject ourselves. We just have to channel our inclinations in the direction of Krishna, and then we will find that naturally we will become more and more peaceful. Naturally, the senses will not have that sort of pull on us, and anger and lust will not be our constant companions at all. And see, that person is well situated and is happy in this world. And it's not just a theory, it's not just something Krishna spoke about 5,000 years ago. It's something that is actually available and accessible, and we can have that if we decide to put our focus in that direction. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for watching. We aim for updates every Tuesday and Friday. Please come back. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down there. We also have some links and information for you. And there is, of course, the subscribe button. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I'm a Hare Krishna, and I approve this message. Subscribe.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.